Hey everyone, doing a 3,000 mile review on my 2020 Wolf EX150 Sport. Been driving it to work several times a week, sometimes weeks on ends, 50-mile round trip. And besides a slight rough ride for how light of a bike it is, it's running great. Had a couple issues. One I had to take to the shop for a warranty repair. But besides that, it's still running great, running strong. Getting about 70 miles to the gallon. Tank will last me, well, when I'm commuting to work, the tank will last me a day and a half. So if I fill up Monday morning, right when I leave home, I'll have to fill up Tuesday afternoon when I leave work. Had some issues at around 1,400 miles. I was driving home from work 5 minutes into my drive and it all of a sudden lost power. It would barely idle. It wouldn't even register on the tachometer. And idle rough. It would just want to bog and pop when I gave it gas. And then all of a sudden, like a switch was flipped, it started running perfectly fine again. And then suddenly that's normal. Did that twice more that day, and then ran perfectly fine for the next 20 miles home. Parked it for a couple days. The next weekend I took it for a test drive, real great for 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden it did it again. So I took it to the shop, and the shop I bought it from, they don't seem to know what they're doing mechanical wise, because they're trying to claim it's something with the CVT, because the back wheel wasn't spinning when it was idling, but it was barely idling and it wasn't even registering on the tach. The clutch doesn't get engaged until around 2,400 RPM. So I had to argue with them about that. I told them to go ahead and replace the carburetor under warranty. A couple days later they called back, says it's running perfectly fine now. And haven't had that issue since, so there's something weird with the carburetor. I don't know if it was some electrical issue with the clutch, or not the clutch, but the choke. Choke was engaging randomly or something, but it's running good now. A few weeks ago, it would suddenly lose all electrical power and it would die. I moved the handlebars some. It would sometimes come back, sometimes it wouldn't. I pulled the whole front end off, poked around at the wiring, and it was the loose ignition plug it was barely plugged in. So put some dielectric grease on that, plug it back in, and zip tied it so it wouldn't happen again. It's run good so far. I'm happy with it. It's my first bike. I took my riding test on it last month. I passed that, so I have my motorcycle license. And now I'm looking at next year getting something bigger. Right now at the top of my list is either a Suzuki Bergman 650 or a Kawasaki Vulcan 650. I don't want anything super sporty. I want more of a cruiser, something I can go for long stretches on the highway. Also something that's not very heavy. I think the Vulcan is only like 500 pounds, which I'll like. Haven't done anything to this thing modification wise. It's pretty much completely stock. Oh, no, actually I put a aftermarket CVT in it, so it has a bit more of an overdrive. It'll stay right around 5,000, 5,500 RPM, and it'll get me up to 55, 60 if I'm going slightly downhill. But overall, I think it was a good starter bike, but I think I'm just outgrowing it a bit faster than I expected to. The 50, 55 mile an hour top speed is feeling a bit limiting, but besides that, it's great for just riding around town. I take it on some of the smaller highways around here, Highway 67 and 141, around Arnold, Imperial, and Festus, and it does that just fine. Pretty fun on back roads. Doesn't have too much acceleration on back roads going uphill or anything, but it's still fun going around the twisties. But besides those two main issues with the carburetor and the ignition plug, I've had zero issues with it. I've got 3,300 miles on it. I replace the oil every 1,000 miles. This next oil change at 4,000, I'm going to replace the gear fluid in the rear axle and the rear hub at 2,000 miles. So I'm going to replace that at 4,000. I'm also going to take the housing off the CVT and test that, or see how the belt looks. Make sure everything is there, still good. I went ahead and got a spare belt for it. So if it does look worn or in case it snaps, I have one already. Has a slight bit of body damage right there. The tab that this screw goes into in this panel broke, so I just zip tied it. One of the issues I might work on this bike, I like to put my feet up here, but there's really no support under there. It's just plastic housing. So I may take this paneling off and weld in some plates, reinforcing plates, so I can put all my force back here when I need to push back to get back on the seat a bit more. I'm also going to shave down this hump a bit more, so it's maybe an inch further back. That way my legs aren't as crowded. I can sit further back more comfortably. Starting to get a little bit of wear on the tire at 3,300 miles. It's starting to thin out. That's one of the other reasons I'm looking for a bike. I'm starting to look for a bike over a scooter. Larger diameter wheels less wear and a smoother ride. My only issue is getting a regular bike. I have to figure out how to do shifting and brake, which I can do on my my XR400, my dirt bike, but I'm not really dealing with traffic with one of those on that thing. So I'm slightly worried about using my feet for shifting and braking. I'm just not a fan of having to take my whole foot off the pedal to shift or brake because I don't have any ankle movement. But that's about it. I got a used 50cc Honda Ruckus clone before this. That was my first street bike, so that's the only thing I have to compare to this. But so far this thing's doing all right. Still debating on whether once I get my next bike next year if I want to sell this thing or keep it and make this my toy to modify, just have fun with. Just see how much power and speed I can squeeze out of this thing. But, I don't know. Really the main issue is storage space. Finding a place to keep two bikes, which once I get my next bike we'll have this, my 400. My friend has, or my roommate has 3 bikes and multiple show cars, so storage space is getting a little tight. Not much more to say about it. It's a fun little bike with the 2 issues. Besides the 2 issues, it's been reliable. But even with those 2 issues, I wasn't stranded on the side of the road, at least for long. I was able to limp it back home or to a friend's house. Nothing's happened so far that actually left me stranded. So for a decent made Chinese bike, I would definitely recommend this. It's better, it's got 13-inch wheels, it's better for longer, higher speed riding, for commuting. The original plan was me and a few friends were going to get scooters and go on a road trip, like 100 or so mile road trip, which we're still working on planning out. No idea when that's actually going to happen. Even if I get my my bike next year, my newer bike next year, I may still do that trip on this, depending on what bikes everyone else has. So, time to go get some riding video and go home and edit this video.